Welcome to the Event Pro Show, your ultimate guide to the world of corporate events. Whether you're a corporate event planner, experiential marketing pro, producer, technician, or anyone involved in creating exceptional events, this podcast is your go-to resource for valuable insights, expert tips, and inspiring stories from the industry's leading professionals.
Well, welcome to the Event Pro Show. I am your host, Seth Macchi. I'm the CEO of LEMG. We're an event production company based in Charlotte, North Carolina, but we travel all over the United States producing corporate events for mostly meeting planners. And today's guest is fantastic. I've met Heather a while ago. I heard her speak, and I was really drawn to her style and the way that she thinks. And I think she's just a fantastic fit. And Heather, I'll read your bio here before we jump in. My guest today is Heather Hansen O'Neill, who is an international keynote speaker, behavioral expert, 4-time author, and adventurer. She's also a 2 times TEDx speaker, host of the popular podcast From Fear to Fire and the Humanity of Sales radio show. Heather wrote the book, Finding Humanity, on intersection of humanity and business, and her signature model, Elements of Adventure, is the powerful framework she utilizes to empower leaders, ignite results, and change the world one adventure at a time. Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Seth. I'm really excited to have our conversation today.
I am too. I love your unique approach to events and all things life. And I'm really excited to have you. You've been on the list since season 1. I just am now, I had to get through a list, to get to you.
You got to do what you got to do. I totally understand.
And you had all sorts of shows going on too. So
I had some things.
I wanted to kick it off with something that you talk about. You talk about humanity a lot, and I think about events a lot. And events tend to be rather sterile, or they can be rather sterile. How can we put more humanity in our events? I'm just going to start there with that question.
Oh, it's such an easy one. No, it's not. But you are so spot on, Seth. And it's really why I wrote the book and why I created the program that goes along with it is that there's something missing. There's something missing in events, in organizations, in interactions with people overall. I don't know if you've noticed it, but there's such a feeling still of people being isolated, feeling, lonely, like they're not cared for. And we still have that's lingering. It's like a residue, right? And specifically as it relates to events, I like that you use the word sterile because I tend to like to go a little bit outside the box. Sometimes it's great. You really need to have a ballroom atmosphere, right? But I like to actually move events into other types of spaces as well, actually even outdoors into nature or bring nature into events. But we'll talk about that later. But the key to making it related to humanity is to ask and listen and do, meaning that as the planner, I think that sometimes surveys are done. Sometimes they're not done. Sometimes they are done,
Right.
But we get so busy that we really don't take the time to do something with the information that's provided, to really listen to what they're saying and thinking beyond even how can we give them what they're wanting, but also go beyond that to give them an experience that they didn't even know they wanted, something that will move them in both stimulate their brains, but also move their hearts and their bodies. And that's part of humanity. It's really connecting. It's about connection and experience.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Heather, you're talking, we have to care about the humans that are the attendees at these events.
Yes. And you know what's interesting in the research that I've done, Seth, specifically about, corporate, how this relates to corporations, when you take care of your people and you take care of your customers, you go over and above for your customers and you contribute back to the community, it comes back in the form of profitability. The same thing applies in events, right? When you take care of your people, your volunteers, your board members, your sponsors, your vendors, your membership. You provide value, you listen to them, you care about what they need, you think about what they might need down the road. That's humanity, right? And that, unfortunately, stands out today because not enough people are doing it. And
Yeah.
so when you do it, they feel it. They feel it and they respond with elevated customer satisfaction surveys and more coming to more events and just getting really excited and telling other people about it.
You go to a lot of events, and in your recent memory, can you think of a time when you, as an attendee, were driving away thinking that I really felt heard? What were the things you were thinking that made you feel that way? What were the things that tied you to that event in a special way that you didn't feel like that was like a dentist appointment? That was something special.
I go to too many dentist appointments, but
Maybe we
but
all do.
right. But specifically, I think that when the people who are running the event take the time to say, "Oh, Heather, welcome. It's so nice to have you here. We haven't seen you in like 6 months. I can't
Hmm.
wait to hear what you think about this upcoming session. I think you're really going to love it." Something where, they're using my name. They actually
Yeah.
know who I am, what I might like. It makes a difference. Now, I know in some of these 4,000 person events, you can't do that. But there are ways that technology can assist in creating a better customer service experience, because you can go back and get some of the data and then to
Yeah.
remind you so that you can show up as a human with some of that information.
It's such an interesting concept, and it shouldn't be a unique concept, but I think it is. And I was just talking to my wife about this the other day, that I'm just so tired of feeling marketed to. Like I feel like a target everywhere I go. Driving, I see billboards or hear things on a podcast or at an event. Things are just kind of blasting at you in just this broad spectrum way. And I think that there is a time and place for that. When you go to an expo, you're expecting a bit of that. But if an event creator could figure out a way to genuinely connect with every attendee, just for the sake of like saying, "I see you," like just because you're another human, I'm not selling in this moment, I see you. What a competitive advantage in a pretty crowded marketplace, where
Mhm.
people are trying to make the best event experience possible. And it seems obvious, but I think it's really hard to pull off.
It is, and I think it's across the board, Seth. What you're talking about is so important from the people, the planners, that first initial
Hmm.
interaction, perhaps. But I'm going to take what you said and say that it applies to everyone. It applies to the speakers who are on the
Hmm.
stage. Stop selling, please. It applies to
Right.
the vendors, the sponsors that are at a trade show. Think about,
Hmm.
what is your end goal. Are you really going to sell your property in 30 seconds as I pass by your booth? No. What do you want to know? What is the goal? The goal is to make a connection. That's
Hmm.
it. Make a connection and then get the card and follow up with it. Like, well, know what it is. Whatever your goal is, it can't be, "I'm going to get a new client from this." And it just
Yes.
changes everything. And it's everywhere, every touch point, every connection point throughout the event has the capability of adding more of a human touch to it.
Hmm. That's definitely the highest level of sales, I think, is starting from a point of connection, for sure. For sure. I love it. And so, okay, you brought it up. So like, as a public speaker, because you also, not only do you attend a lot of events, but you speak, you're on both sides of the stage there. As a public speaker, what are some simple things that can be done by the planners of the event that set you up for success, even in the context of that humanity piece, but other things that you've gone and spoken places and you're like, I if this gets messed up, it's on me because I am so supported in this moment.
Yeah. And you feel it from the get-go, and I get so excited when I'm working with a planner who has it down. They know they've got
Hmm.
this system. This isn't their first rodeo. They've got everything. They know, oh, I want all of this from you now so that I can give you all of this in one email.
Hmm.
That the same thing that they want from me, I want from them. The
Right.
organization, the responsiveness, all of that. But I'm going to
Hmm.
go a step further because of who I am, and I don't mean that in a weird way, but I want to say it's me. I don't want to project that every speaker wants this. Okay,
Right.
because that they might hate me if I did that. But I
You speak
want,
only for yourself.
right, like, I just for me, I want you as the planner to tell me what you really want. Like, what do you want people to walk away with?
Mm.
What is your goal for the whole event? Not just me in the keynote, right? Not just the keynote. What do you want to achieve? What is the experience? What do you want them to feel? Where are you feeling like you don't have all of that down? Because
Hmm.
when we underestimate and put people into boxes, we miss out on the experience. I've been doing this for an eternity, right? And one of the things I love to do is to if somebody has a challenge and they want to achieve this and they're here and there's some kind of a block in the middle,
Hmm.
let me help. It may have nothing to do with me as a keynote. It might have to do with something else that I can help because I happen to have experienced it in the past, right? Oh,
Hmm.
you know what? You might want to talk to so and so. Hey, you've got it. You're not sure what to do with your AV. You got to talk to Seth, right? So
Hmm.
whatever it is, you let me in because we're on the same team. We're
Yeah.
collaborating. We're not.
So you're looking for that
Yeah,
creative transparency on
yeah.
that. We're
Mm-hmm.
a partner in this
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. Because I love that.
Got
I
it.
love to help.
So that gives you more of a holistic view of like, what am I walking out into?
Yes.
Not because you're a control freak, but because
That's a
you
whole
want to
other
know.
issue, and I
It's
can
another
definitely
podcast.
lay claim to liking control, but that's really not what this is about. I promise.
Well, you're a very experienced, seasoned speaker, and I have heard you speak. And so this next question, it came from that. But planners are looking for ways to enhance the attendee experience on site. And there was a whole episode we did before with another guest about how planners are looking for ways to do it different. Not the just rectangle rooms that we're in every time, but do things different. How can you use your surroundings to increase the impactfulness of a meeting? And I know you have lots of thoughts on that as well.
I do. I have lots of thoughts, and I know we don't have all day long to talk about it, so I'll just plant a couple of
Pick your
seeds.
favorites.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, it's always about the experience. How can we energize them? How can we move them emotionally? How can we get them excited about activating something? But because I also have this framework that I created called the Elements of Adventure, that's what you saw me presenting, it has
Hmm.
to do with the elements of nature. And I mentioned it in the very beginning. There's ways that we can look at nature to really activate the senses, right?
Hmm.
And so are there opportunities to go outside, feel the fresh air, even open a window? That's why the garage doors are so big now. How can we add a water element? If you have a really big noisy event, some people are going to need to get out of that for a little bit, have a quiet space where maybe there's a waterfall element in there. Put your feet in the grass. How can you actually bring people outside and do something where their feet are in the grass or the sand, or moving your body? How can you incorporate different parts of the event that maybe you haven't before, the behind the scenes thing? How can
Hmm.
you, maybe if it's if the venue has a particular bit of experience or an amazing chef who does farm to table stuff, how can you incorporate them bringing you out into the garden to talk about how that has, contributed to a healthier lunch or whatever it might be. It's going to be different depending on your audience, of course. But when you can incorporate nature into your event or bring people out of the traditional setting into nature, I have seen it absolutely transform the results because you make people feel something. I do
Hmm.
a lot with fire. I'm a little bit of a fire style. So if there's a fire pit experience, I could go on. I actually have, if you or your guests are interested in it, I have top 25 ways to incorporate these types of things. It's a checklist,
Oh
and
yeah,
I
I love
love
that.
checklists.
Can
So if
we can
anybody wants
include a
it,
link? We'll include
sure.
a link in the information of this podcast for that. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I think that the natural surrounding thing that you're talking about is pretty incredible, and it sounds like you're just, if you were in a perfect world, you would be pushing down the walls and you would be on a hike like doing a session. That would be.
Well, you got to know your audience. Yes, that would be for me.
Hmm.
I incorporate adventure because I started to do it years ago because I'm an adventure junkie, right? So
Hmm.
in full transparency, it was completely selfish. So I
Yeah,
would go
yeah.
on these adventures because I like that, right? But then I started to get a lesson from every adventure that I went on, and I
Hmm.
started to incorporate the stories into my keynotes. And it was always the thing that people afterward would come up to me and say, I can't believe you flew on the trapeze. That was such a great story about letting go, or it really resonated, about overcoming fear, or that was always the thing. And then I realized that you don't have to do that kind of adventure. It's wherever um, your comfort zone is, right? So an adventure for one person might be jumping out of an airplane, but for another person, it might be getting the nerve to go over into a group of people at a networking event and saying hello because that's not comfortable for them. So the analogy of adventure is really about pressing outside of our comfort zones, whatever it is, because everything extraordinary in our relationships, in our events, in our business world, in every element comes outside of our comfort zones. If we stayed in our
Hmm.
comfort zones, nothing extraordinary would happen.
Got it. So your concept of adventure, the first thing that comes to mind is like blazing a trail in a jungle or something. But what you're really saying is it's just pushing beyond the limits that you have in your mind and taking
Yes.
a risk.
Yes.
Do you think do you think that's a core component of a well-lived life?
Yes. I really, really do. And the longer I'm alive and the more clients I get the great pleasure of speaking to, the more I realize that comfort, that bird on the branch is missing out. When
Hmm.
things are going okay in your job or your relationship, or the event's okay,
Hmm.
you got an 8 in the score. It's good. They're going to come back again next year because they need their credit, their CE credits. But when we're comfortable, we don't find out what we're capable of, and we don't find that real joy and meaning in our lives. And
Mm.
I know the people that I work with in the event industry, they came into this industry because they wanted to make a difference,
Yeah.
because they knew that when people meet, it's meaningful, that it makes a difference. But sometimes the reality of, oh, this, and then I got to do that, and then I have another meeting, and then I got to have a meeting about the meeting, and it just gets heavy, and you forget why you
It's soul
started.
crushing.
Right? It
Yeah.
is. It is.
Hmm.
But it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. And that takes us back to, the top of what we were talking about is including humanity in so to avoid sterile events. And humanity in events can mean giving people a chance to have a bit of an adventure in everything that you do. And so you do get in front of a lot of people. So inevitably, right down the middle of the room, figuratively, there's a split of like introvert, extrovert.
Yeah.
Do you think about that when you're speaking and you're trying to get people to do things uncomfortable? And do you approach it differently?
Yes, I do. So when I'm one-on-one, I can pick up on the style, the personality traits of the person, and it's easy, right? When you're speaking to an audience of 50, 100, 200, 4,000, it gets a little bit harder. So you have to be conscious and intentional about serving all the styles. So as simple as introvert and extrovert, but also there are nuances. I've been a disc facilitator for 15 years. I created my own assessment with the adventure quotient. And when we start to understand what people in the audience really need and can serve those needs, you can get really creative, right? So not everybody's going to want to stand up and tell their story, but some will. And
Yeah.
not everybody is going to want to take on a leadership role at a table, but some will. And some will need to have someone ask them their opinion. They're not going to jump in and offer it. So then I give instructions on how each person might need to offer something. They could write it down or they can
Yeah.
speak it. So you're giving them a multitude of ways that it can serve their soul. That's really, I think it's really important.
And that could be their adventure. Just
Yes.
writing it down to share with the group, might be their version of that. That's a big deal,
Yeah.
to them. I think it's important that you keep that in mind. I think a lot of things are aimed at extroverts because they're the visibly, but at the same time, there's someone sitting quiet, being moved even more. They're
Yes.
just, that's how they are. I love this concept of adventure and humanity and developing events, creating events like that. So if you're someone that leads events listening to this saying, hey, I want to roll this out at my next event, but I lead a team, what's the best way to keep your team engaged and clear on that mission? If you want to make a shift to say, I'm going to try something with our next event. I want to make a connection with each attendee, and this is our mission. How do you move a whole team, move the needle with a whole group of people that are leading that event?
I love this question. You come up with good ones, Seth. Okay, so the same way that you want to create a better experience at your event, you want to create a better experience at your meetings with your team, right? And so
Yeah,
it's the same thought process. You can say, I have this vision, I have this idea, but don't forget to say, what do you think, and how, do you have ideas on how we can make that come to fruition? Do you know someone who might be able to be involved in this? What are some options that I haven't thought of yet? What's important to you? Because we're humans, right? We're going back to the humanity thing. And so we are very connected, and there's going to be some similarities. So while you may have this vision, you may not even realize that someone on your team has a hidden skill, a desire to learn something or do something or use this talent that they haven't told anybody about, that will directly positively impact that mission of yours. And if we don't ask, we'll never know. So, treat your teams like the amazing gift that they are. Especially if their volunteers show appreciation, because you're not giving them a whole lot else,
You're giving them a lot of steps on their step tracker. That's what you're giving them. So you're saying you want to change the culture of an event, then with your team, you're bringing them into the adventure themselves. You're asking them to take some risks and allow them the opportunity to take some risks, not just
And to
tell them.
fail if it needs to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
People,
Yep.
and back to that control thing, right? You
Hmm.
you alluded to it. Too much control, and to be honest, people in this industry all tend to have that because that's what makes you think of
What?
the A, B, C, D, E, F.
What are you talking about?
Oh, I know,
I've
no,
never
not
met
us.
control freaks in our
No, no,
industry.
no problem. But the ability to suspend it momentarily, to allow
Yeah.
someone the freedom to be themselves and to try to potentially fail will ultimately end up with a much bigger, better, more textured outcome than if you try to hold tight to it.
Right. I definitely believe in that things get exponentially better when you bring in a team and let them kind of excel at the gifts that they have. If you've built that team with people you trust, let them do it. Let
Right.
them fly. That's
Hmm.
amazing. I'm very excited now. I want to create some adventures on
Let's do
on my
it.
side. So you also you are a podcast host
Yes. Yeah.
from Fear to Fire. Tell me about that podcast. What do you talk about on that?
So from fear to fire is it's a little different. Like yours is wonderfully niche marketed, which I think is
Hmm.
brilliant. And if I had years ago when I came up with From Fear to Fire, thought it through a little bit more, maybe I would have done a better job of it. But I love how you're really, honed in on the specific listener. From Fear to Fire is a little bit different because it's really more personality based than role based or industry based or anything like that. If someone is someone who really values ongoing learning and growth, and you want to learn from other people, then it's a good opportunity because I bring on guests from all different areas, all different industries, all different
Hmm.
walks of life to talk about the fears and the challenges that they have overcome on their road to success and the lessons that they learned from it so that the listeners can take those lessons away from them. The stories that I've heard have been amazing, absolutely amazing.
Hmm.
So I will tell you that I am on episode 350 of
Oh, the congratulations. That's
Weekly.
amazing.
So I've been doing that one for a long time. And then last year, I started an additional show, a radio show called The Humanity of Sales, where Purpose Meets Profit. And that
Hmm.
has just recently transitioned into a YouTube show.
Oh, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. You're always putting out stuff, and you have books. Your most recent book, and that's your Finding Humanity is your most recent book, correct?
Yes, that one was published last year. That's my
And
fourth.
what is that book about? What does that cover?
Um, Permission to get transparent and a little mushy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Please
Thank
do.
you. So it was not meant to be a book in the beginning. It was meant to be a way um, to feel better about my mom's illness and
Mm,
what had happened with her. And so in order for me to come to terms with she had dementia that was getting much worse, I moved to be closer to her, and
mm,
then she ended up passing from cancer. And I was in a why me, how could this happen mode. And so
mhm,
I would walk on the beach and I would seek out moments of humanity, moments where people were doing something good or kind or generous or helping each other, because it made me feel a little bit better. It was literally the
yeah.
only thing that was making me feel a little bit better. But then I would share the sunrise pictures and the stories of that I had found of that moment of humanity from the day before. And I can't even tell you, Seth, people responded. They responded so powerfully to, it was during
Mhm,
COVID. And so
mhm,
everyone was feeling isolated. Everyone was feeling challenged. And so more than anything I've ever done, they were sending me all of these notes and everything. And so I started to think about how it might relate in business, because that's kind of where my forte is. And that's when I did the research with a team on, does humanity play a role in business? And that's where all the rest of the stats and research on how there is a correlation between the businesses that show up for their people and their communities with humanity and how it comes back to them. So it started once again with my personal journey, the sharing it, the connection that I got from others, and then it just got bigger. And that's, I think, how these things happen. When you lead with humanity, it touches people and it gets bigger.
I love that. I'm glad you wrote that book. I've walked that road before too with my mom. So
I'm sorry.
it's something I feel very strong. I hate cancer. I hate it. But full circle back to the beginning, your thoughts on humanity at events. What I love about this discussion, it would be, on this podcast, we talk to technical people, technical execution. We've talked to people that plan. There's a lot of precise execution that's talked about, from venues to food to hoteliers and people that run production companies, creative companies. But one thing that is rarely talked about is that humanity piece, which I'm glad we talked about, because you brought it up a couple of days ago, and I've been thinking about it. And how does that tie in? It ties in exactly correctly, because when we do events, we can do technical execution that's amazing, but people still walk away and it still felt like dentist office. And I love your idea that it doesn't have to be that way. They can feel seen, and it doesn't take much, that they feel they're not just like something that's being marketed to. They feel like someone that's part of something. And I think that's super powerful. So thank you for sharing that concept. I think it's an important piece of the discussion that I didn't see. I was blind to. And I'm going to start suggesting it more around planning tables of like, yeah, but let's think about the attendee a little more. Just one more second here, because I think that's very important.
Thank you for that ripple effect. I love that so much. Thank you.
Well, if people want to find out more about you, Heather Hansen O'Neill, where should they go? Where do you hang out digitally?
Oh my goodness. So the Heather Hansen O'Neill, it's so funny. I think of it as so easy because you just find me with those three names anywhere. It's my website, LinkedIn, Facebook, anywhere. But people always spell it wrong. So I have to just point out, Hansen has an E-N and O'Neill has two L's, because if you don't, you're not going to find me.
I'm making sure I spelled it right here. Did I
You
spell
did.
it right?
You did great.
Yes. All right, cool. Well, we'll make sure to spell it right. So
I know
just
you
copy
will.
and paste from there if you're listening to this. Okay. First of all, get the spelling right. So. And then you just Google and you have all sorts of stuff
I'm everywhere.
going on.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for being a guest on the Event Pro Show. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you for doing this. I think it's important for our meeting professionals.
Absolutely. And thank you, listener, for joining us on this episode of the Event Pro Show. If you want to hear all of our back episodes, you can go to theeventproshow.com and check out everything we have there. But either way, thank you for spending time with us today, and we'll see you on the next one. The Event Pro Show is a production of LEMG, video by Nick Barrett, audio and post-production by Prince Thompson. You can learn more about us at lemg.live.